Invited into his attic. I was 11 at the time and living in a nice suburb area. We had recently moved into this house my parents had built, and it was our first home versus rented house in sketchy area. It was a very nice neighborhood. The whole family made friends quickly with lots of neighbors, but especially the ones 3 doors down. They had a daughter my age, I'm male by the way, and a daughter 5 years younger which was the same age as my sister. Our parents got along well and we began hanging out quite a bit for BBQs at their house or parties at our house, etc. Friendships were formed quickly and seemed to be very strong. After a year or so, I started realizing things weren't what they seemed. I remember seeing police cars at their house a few times in the evenings, and when I'd ask my parents what was going on, it was always nothing, just checking in on them, type answers. I was no genius, but at 11 that didn't add up. Why didn't the cops just check up on us? One day I'm at their house playing/hanging out, and the daughter goes across the street to get another mutual friend, which left myself and the father alone in the house. This was really no big deal as it has happened before. But then he approached me and just seemed off. I still don't know what made me feel this way, but I was very uncomfortable and started thinking about leaving. About 5 minutes later he tells me he has something cool to show me. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was something about baseball cards, which I was very fond of. I excitedly started following him. He pulled the attic ladder down and asked me to follow him, which I did without hesitation, at first. Then something happened and I still can't process what it was. He was ahead of me on the ladder, and when he looked back to help me into the attic there was something off, something about his eyes, his face, his grin. It wasn't right, it looked evil. I can still see it clear as day and can't recognize exactly what it was that set my alarms off. Whatever it was plenty, because I jumped off the ladder and ran out the door. I sprinted all the way home and was choking back tears when I busted through my front door. Mom was there when I came through and could see I was obviously out of sorts and immediately started calming me down. As I came to my senses I explained what happened. My mom was concerned with how scared I was, but mostly brushed it off to me being scared/young/silly, etc. Shit you not, that same exact night I was woken up at around 3 a.m. It was my mom sitting on my bed, and as I awoke she held me like a baby. I remember how she smelled and how tightly she held me, and I remember her tears hitting my cheek. Eventually I saw out the window to the neighbor's house surrounded by police and fire trucks, etc. The neighbor dad had killed himself and his daughter in the attic after a standoff with police. There isn't a doubt in my mind, nor my mother's, that would have been me had I made it into the attic. I still get chills thinking about it, so neighbor man, let's not meet, even in the afterlife. My neighbor was in my attic, so, around 10 to 12 years ago, in England, I lived in a little 2-bedroom house on a long road. It is a terraced house on a long strip of other terraced houses. Back in the day all the attics were joined and you could literally travel through them. Years later they realized it was a bad idea. Fires spreading, burglars, etc., and so all the attics were bricked up so each house was secure. One night I was soaking in the bath when I heard a noise above me. Thinking it may be an animal or something, I just ignored it. This went on for a few weeks only. It was getting to the point I would only hear the noise when I was in the bath/shower or getting changed. I got a friend to check the attic and he told me he didn't see anything. He just stuck his head inside, which just confirmed my animal story. Not much happened after that for about a month or two, when one night I was alone. I was getting ready to take a shower. As I was heading out with friends, I heard the same noise above when all of a sudden the dog started going crazy, barking and looking directly above me. Clearly I was freaked out and decided to get ready at a friend's house. The next day I was outside my house when the neighbor shouted me. Now my neighbor is creepy as hell, small, stinky, strange looking with hint of crazy in his eyes. He asked if I was okay. Being polite and trying to show him he doesn't really bother me, I said yes and went about my business. Just as I got to my door he asked if I got to my friend's okay. At first, without thinking I said yes thank you, smiled and waved goodbye. When I got inside my house I realized that he would not know I was at a friend's unless he heard me on the phone, and, as I was so creeped out the night previously, I was practically whispering to my friend. Anyway, I rang family members. told my dad and they all came round. They turned the lights on in the bathroom but kept all the other lights off. Opened the attic door and you could see two lights shining right through to the top of the attic. Two tiny little holes. My bathroom ceiling was quite dark, so I never noticed them. My dad went in. He was gone a while, but when he returned he was blazing angry. He ignored everyone and walked straight outside to the neighbor's house. We heard him shouting for the neighbor to open the door, but he was not home. I asked my cousin to go up to check it out. When he came back down, he told me that the wall separating the attics had been knocked through. Most of the brickwork was on my side, so it was knocked through from the other side. We called the police, but they told us that there was no proof he had done anything. The neighbor told the police he never used the attic and the previous tenants may be to blame. Clearly he was to blame, the old dirty pervert. I don't think I have ever been so disturbed knowing that the dirty pervert had been watching me for all that time. I never stayed in that house again. The attic creeper. When I was around 8 years old, we moved into a new house. It wasn't old, but it wasn't a fairly new built house either, maybe built around the 60s. Everyone got their own room, and this was the first time I was on my own. I thought I was a big shot. A little background on myself. I'd like to call myself somewhat of a sensitive. Ever since I was a child, I could always feel the sense of something or someone around when no one else could. Fast forward to when I was 9, it was the first year in the house. I could feel the presence of something in there, but I never really thought anything of it considering it wasn't too negative. There were 3 rooms that I didn't really like being in because the energy felt somewhat dark. The basement, the bathroom, and the attic. I didn't mind being in the basement when I had friends over, but when I was alone I couldn't be in there for more than 5 minutes without getting the feeling like I was being watched. In the bathroom was a cabinet that was very deep. You could literally fit 2 grown men in there. I never understood why it was so big, but didn't feel right, and I would often feel drawn to just look inside and stare for a few minuets, and I would get a very uneasy feeling. The attic, on the other hand, was a different story. I never ever opened it. I kept the door shut at all times. Something was up there, and it didn't want company. One night I was laying in bed. It was around 2:45 a.m. when I heard footsteps in the hallway. I assumed it was just one of my brothers coming home from a night out with friends. My bedroom door was open, so I looked to see if anyone was walking around. I stared for about what seemed like 10 minutes and no one went by. I got scared, so I decided to wait it out. As my eyes adjusted to the dark, I thought I seen a human-like shape in the corner of my bedroom. I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me, so I just tried to turn over and go to sleep. But I felt like I was being watched. Now in a 9-year-old's mind, it's the boogeyman. So I quick hopped out of my bed and tried to run in my mom's room. Her room was only 2 doors down from mine. In order to walk out of my room, you have to pass a wall that was somewhat slanted. In order to do this, you have to walk sideways. As I did this, I felt 2 hands pressed down on my shoulders. I froze in fear. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I was a prisoner to my own body. Then all of a sudden, the hair on the back of my neck stood up in my ear, clear as day. I heard heavy breathing. It didn't sound human. My eyes widened, and then I felt the pressure lift off of me. I could move again. I ran so fast down the small hallway into my mother's bed. That whole night I kept hearing someone walk back and forth in the hallway, but I refused to look through the doorway. When I tell you I didn't sleep that night, I mean I didn't sleep that week. The next morning I walked into the hallway and just so happened to look up. The door to the attic was open. I asked my mom, was she up in the attic, and she said no, that there was no reason that should have been open. My stomach felt like it was in my throat. I knew whatever was in that attic was in my bedroom the night before, just watching me. I'm thankful I got up out of the bed when I did, because if I didn't, I don't want to think what were to happen. I'm 22 now, and I can still remember that night as if it were yesterday. And I still can't sleep with the lights off. So to whoever, or whatever grabbed my shoulders that night, let's never, and I mean never, meet again.